Добрий день.
Good morning, my name is Artem Sytnyk, and it's my pleasure to see everyone joining us in Ukraine Media Center Ukrinform. It's been 10 years of the war, and today is day 596 of the full-scale invasion of our homeland by Russian aggressor. And traditionally, I want to thank the representatives of all the mass media who tell the world the truth about our fight for freedom. Today, we have invited you to talk about a very important topic. We will talk about the resumption of tax declarations. I would like to introduce our speakers today. It's Artem Sytnyk, National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine Deputy Head, and also joining us is Yuliya Kulikova, Head of NABU's Office for Full Inspections. Good morning, dear friends. On the 10th of October, the President signed the law number 3384, which resumed the tax declarations. The law comes into force on the very next day upon being published. So what is about to change? So what's gonna happen with those who are supposed to submit the declarations? Please, Mr. Artem. Good morning, everybody. As it was said, it's day 596 of the war, and within 596 days, the duty to submit declarations, or the obligation to submit declarations, was suspended. But we keep talking about the reconstruction of Ukraine, and in the opinion of the anti-corruption agencies, the further reconstruction of Ukraine is impossible without faithfulness and prosperity of the government, and one of such elements is declaration of the incomes of the government officials. National Anti-Corruption Bureau, back in the year 2022, when the situation has changed and the circumstances have changed. So starting from September 2022, we were insisting on resumption of declarations. It was a very long discussion, and I appreciate the input of our international partners, our civil society, who supported us in this initiative. And today, on the 12th of October, the law that resumes the obligation to submit the declaration for the officials, government officials, comes into force. And upon its coming into force, many questions have emerged that are related to the following declaration campaigns. Right away, I would like to start with the fact that we have 3 declaration campaigns. Year 2021 declarations. I'm reminding you that year was the year before the full-scale invasion, then the year 2022, and the year 23. Declarations within years 21 and 22, the obligation to declare or to submit those declarations is until the 1st of January 24, and talking about the declarations for the year 23, the declarations are about to be submitted until the 31st of March year 24. So those are very important dates for understanding which declarations should be submitted for which periods. Once again, declaration campaign for years 21-22 ends on the 31st of January year 24, and the declaration of incomes for year 23 is about to end on the 31st March next year. Also, the question we are being frequently asked, are the people supposed to submit the declaration for the case of the significant changes in their estates within this period? So until the very day that the law comes into force, no changes in the estates should be declared, and only those which are happening after the law comes into force, the reports of them, the declarations about such changes, are supposed to be submitted within 10 days after the significant changes in estates. Why I'm emphasizing on this period of 10 days? Because if we talk about submission of declaration about opening of foreign currency account in that case, the declaration is supposed to be submitted within 20 days after opening of such accounts. And on top of that, any declarations about opening foreign currency accounts starting within the period starting from 24th February 2022 and until the very day the law comes into force are not supposed to be submitted. So again, I'm re-emphasizing this. Any reports on opening of foreign currency accounts are supposed to be submitted within 20 days. And it's important for the government officials to submit the declarations in a voluntary manner, because, you know, even when that obligation was suspended, many government officials still have submitted the declarations, and the amount of such declarations equal to about 700,000, which was an indicator of transparency in our opinion. So again, as I mentioned, 700,000 declarations, but at the same time, the law allows us to amend the declarations, and the opportunity to submit such changes will be available within 14 days upon law taking force. So all the people who submitted the declarations in a voluntary manner, they may apply to the National Anti-Corruption Agency, and their declarations can be amended. So whoever wishes to amend their declarations which were submitted after the 24th February 2024, all those people will be able to amend to submit relevant applications on amendment of declarations that were submitted after the 24th of February 2022, and such declarations should be submitted within 14 days. So once again, 14 days is the term for amendments. Yes, exactly. This is the period within which people are allowed to submit applications on amendments. It's even if they submit it on the 14th day, the declaration still will be amended. Also, we are frequently asked, is there an option to amend the declarations further on? Well, yes, the procedure is such that it can be done only once. The application is submitted within 14 days, and they can amend the condition of their estates only once. Also, there were questions about different categories of officials and other government representatives who are supposed to submit declarations. Well, there is a security component, and this is why the adoption of the law on resumption of declarations was a little bit postponed. However, the president supported it to the maximum extent with account of the security components. The register of declarations is supposed to be opened within 60 days after the law comes into force. And if there is a question why not right away, we would like to explain that first of all, we are obliged by the law to bring all of our regulations in compliance with this law, and we have 1 month to do it. Obviously, it's not going to take us 1 month. We have all the drafts of those laws or regulations already developed, and the most important document which concerns the Register of Declarations is the procedure for seizure of declarations from public part of the Register of Declarations, and if disclosure of this declaration poses certain risks for the persons declaring. So again, we have 60 days, and there is already the procedure developed for seizure of such declarations. Okay, so right away the question, who is taking this decision? How the list of these people is made and who is responsible for creation of such lists? Well, first of all, there is a certain category of people for whom the obligation to submit declarations is postponed. They are the servicemen of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, State Bodyguard Service, State Guard Service, Special Police Forces, who are involved in battle operations. Also, they are the people who are covered by the Article 51.2 on prevention of corruption. So they are the people who are protected by secrecy, and those are the people who are in the area of active battle operations or are located in temporarily occupied territories. Also, those are the people who are held in captivity as prisoners of war or are treated after the injuries or wounds. So all those people that I've listed, for them the obligation to submit the tax declarations is postponed until the moment not later than 90 calendar days after the conditions that change their circumstances come into force. So basically, if they retire from military service or the territories they reside in are liberated. So it happens upon the application of their heads, of their directors. The application by the director is being submitted to the National Anti-Corruption Agency in electronic form, and those declarations are removed from the public part of the register. Responsibility for faithfulness of the lists is vested in the heads, in the directors of those services, and National Anti-Corruption Agency will consider such applications and remove the relevant declarations from public part of the register. Mr. Artem, do we understand it correct that the removal from the register does not make you exempt from any inspections, so that those people will still be inspected by National Anti-Corruption Agency, but not in the public part? Yes, there will be inspections. The procedure of the inspections will be explained to you by Ms. Yuliya. So this closed part of the register will only be accessed by the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, but for the public, that declaration would be closed with the relevant remark. And to wrap it up, I would like to remind, well, this option has been long developed by the national agency. I would like to remind for the declarants that in the account of every declarant persons there is such a section, details for declarations. So those are the data about the vehicles, the real estate, and stuff like this, so that you don't collect that data. We have this useful and convenient option. I used it myself. So you just download all that information to your account and you can move that information to your declaration. That's a very convenient function. Unfortunately, not all of the declarant persons are aware of it, but we were advertising it in our website, reminded them that such option is available. So once again, I'm reminding you that this option is available for years 21, 22, and 23, and it will continue being available for any subsequent declaration campaign, which facilitates the process of filling and submitting the declaration. Also, as soon as the law comes into force, we resume the obligation to submit the declarations, and we resume the option for National Agency for Corruption Prevention to inspect such declarations, obviously, because there are questions whether we will or we will not inspect these declarations. Obviously, we will do so, and after 60 days, as soon as the law comes into force, all the journalists, all the activists of civil organizations will have access to the public part of the register, to all of the declarations, except for those that I've just mentioned. So using this opportunity, I invite everybody to get involved in disclosure of unsubstantiated assets. We resume the function of monitoring of the way of life is the special authorization of the National Agency for Prevention of Corruption. We study the lives of the people submitting declarations. We inspect their incomes, their profits, and if we see some incoherence there, we make an investigation, and if we find out that there is a certain misbalance between them, we then submit the case to bring the case to the anti-corruption courts, depending on the amount of assets. So again, if there is a difference between the full inspection and monitoring of the way of life, so the starting point of the monitoring of the way of life is the declaring person themselves, even if they don't submit such declarations, but we still can evaluate the condition of their estates. And for the declarations, the starting point of investigation is the declaration. Now I want to give the floor to Ms. Yuliya. Ms. Yuliya, so have the criteria changed for submission of declarations that will subsequently be fully inspected? Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be here, but I would like to revert a little bit to the specifics of the previous of the recently adopted law. That there's a lot to talk about, because there is a demand by the declaring persons to do so. And to add to what was said, to wrap up with the topic of submission before we proceed to the inspections itself, we have certain changes to the procedure which will may be of interest to journalists and the people who are supposed to submit declarations too. So what has changed? The regulator was trying to facilitate the procedure for declaration, and the people who submit declarations will see that the changes were made in part of amount of information that is supposed to be declared. So starting with this declaration campaign, people are not supposed to submit the account numbers. Also, we have some period to bring the regulations in compliance with this law, and every people who want to submit declarations today, tomorrow, or the day after will be technically able to submit declarations without such details. And we are trying to adapt the current declarations to these regulations. Mr. Artem has already mentioned the changes for those who will submit the declarations within this declaration campaign, and I want to emphasize that the regulator mentioned that the people who submit declarations and whose families are living abroad are entitled not to provide the addresses of the residents of their families. And we would like to enable all the people who submit declarations to use that option. Well, talking about the amended declarations, I would like to clearly specify that you can only apply for amendments in a written form, not through your account, since the term is quite limited and it starts today and it ends on the 25th of October. It's supposed to be a written request which specifies the date of submission of declaration. It's important because those declarations that were submitted before the beginning of the full-scale invasion, before the 24th of February, they cannot be amended. Only those that were submitted after the 24th of February 2022. It's important because we will have to unfortunately reject those individuals who submit the request for amendment of declaration submitted before the 24th of February 2022. So talking about your question, we changed the approach to the calculation of risks in the submitted declarations. We have developed the algorithm based on the logic and arithmetic control, which allows us comparing data with the data in declarations with the data in the registers. It allows us to compare the details with previous declarations, and we also use some rules and formula. Here it's a multi-level and multi-component algorithms that allows us to identify the level of risk for every single declaration, and by that indicator from the highest to lowest one, all the declarations will be arranged. So all the declarations that have any weight coefficient, regardless of the position of the applicant, if the declaration has the highest rating, it will be inspected first, whether it's the president or a judge or just a local level government or community official. So we will be also inspecting the declarations even with the lowest level of risk. What has changed in this part of the law? The regulator removed the provision on obligation of inspection of absolutely all declarations submitted by top-level government officials. This is in simple words. Now, the wording of this provision is such that the full inspection is not mandatory for all of the government officials, so we can approach the declarations with risk orientation, and we may not inspect all the declarations that were previously inspected or where the errors were corrected, and we forecast that it will first remove the workload of the National Agency for Corruption Prevention, because institutionally we're not capable of checking 1 million, and now it will be 3 million declarations. Just to make sure that our work is efficient and you as the society can see us, we should focus on the declarations with the highest level of risk. And we hope that the system that we promote and impose will allow us to evaluate risks in all of the declarations, and as soon as the period to submit the corrected declarations is over and the declarations will be evaluated by risk, we will start picking them for full inspection. As long as the campaign is still on, within which people are allowed to submit the corrected and amended declarations, we still focus on making sure that declaring persons fill their declarations in a correct way. Then we will also amend it with the details about the families. Our colleagues are preparing the explanations of the regulations, and first of all we want to focus our attention on helping and support of the declaring persons so they submit their declarations in correct way according to the procedure. Then we evaluate the risks and we pick the relevant declarations for full inspections. Thank you very much. Before we proceed to the questions from the floor, I would like to ask you another important question. Are there any changes in part of liability for submission of wrong data or something like that? No, there are no changes to the law in this part. Dear colleagues, if you have any questions, please ask your questions. Yana Lomachenko, Ukrinform. I'm having a question regarding the electronic signature. First, it was through private bank system, and what's going to happen now? Well, nothing changed in this part. You can obtain You can obtain the digital signature. You know, previously there was a problem, but the problem was on part of Privat. So everything remains the same. Yes, everything remains the same. Look, you can do it through your mobile application. Personally, I was doing it through mobile application. We have an online question. Well, is such: if the declaration is submitted by an individual, but it does not comply with current legislation, can the declaration be removed? Well, yes, we already have explained the conditions for removal of declaration through public part, and what you're asking about is another procedure. In compliance with the law, all the documents submitted to the register are preserved within 5 years after the end of after a person is deprived of this or otherwise retires from the status of a person which is supposed to submit declaration. So after the expiration of a 5 years period, they may apply to us to have their declarations removed. So this is what the law says. Okay, thank you. And what about the technical capabilities? We know that there are technical breakdowns when people cannot just enter the system, sign up. Is there anything that you can tell about this to our users? We understand that there should be a lot of visitors on your websites during this short period. Well, you know, we had this question. I was even reading in some website that the register of declarations was already malfunctioning, but it was not possible for it to be malfunctioning because it was not even open. So in fact, the applicants with experience, they remember the first declaration campaign, because even at 2 o'clock in the night you were not able to enter. The website was working very bad. All the declarations that you were filling, they were resetted. But all those problems were removed. By now, we don't see any risks with submission of declaration for the time being. Obviously, we're not insured against any technical breakdowns, just like any other. But if any such breakdowns happen, we don't forecast any significant difficulties with submission of declarations. Thank you. So in continuation of this, you know, we are in condition of war. Russians continue attacking our web resources. How protected are we against such attacks and against disclosure of data that is not supposed to be disclosed? Well, National Agency for Corruption Prevention used all reasonable efforts to prevent any hacker attacks. We realize all those risks, and all those risks, they did not emerge after the 24th of February 2022. They emerged way longer ago. But on one hand, we have to take care about the faithfulness of the government and transparency, and on the other hand, we have to take care about the compliance with the law. So it creates a lot of questions, but I hope just as soon as we bring all the regulations in compliance, I think there are a lot of discussions, but on certain stage after the implementation of the law, all those discussions will wane, and the balance between security and transparency will be taken care of. We have a couple of other online questions. For example, if there is first deputy head of the company and many other deputies, are they all supposed to submit declarations, or is it only the first deputy? Well, as the law comes into force, the legal entities or the individuals who are parts of those legal entities are the heads and deputy heads. Yeah, all of the deputy heads are supposed to submit declarations. How soon will the agency provide free access to the register about the family members and their automatic transfer into the declarations? A very good question. I appreciate the input of the author. So we've used the time of this pause for inspections, and we have implemented that function that allows us to get such information for free for the applicant. Well, talking about the family members, we were understanding that only the applicants know who are the members of their families. So we were waiting for the law to come into force, and now there is a regulation that allows, not only allows, but obliges us to provide such access to the details about the family members, so that we make sure and don't collect any information about other persons which are not related to their families. So currently we're in cooperation with the Ministry of Digital Transformation to enable an option to confirm the family members through DIA application. So as soon as we get such confirmation, to prevent any vulnerable, sensitive, confidential information spreading about third persons, thus we implement those provisions of the law, and we hand over such information in case the family members are confirmed through DIA application. This work is underway now. We have to bring our regulations in compliance within a month, and now we've prepared a regulation on amendment of the register, and now we're preparing it for government registration. And as soon as we implement this function of confirmation through DIA application, I hope it happens this year, we will be, as soon as we do it, we will be able to organize the collection of data about the family members and to hand them over to the applicants. Well, talking about the transfer of such data to the form of the declaration itself, there are two aspects. First is the frequency of data in the registers. This is why I would like to ask the declarants themselves, or the applicants who use those functions, they see what are the details on the registers, and if they see any errors, any incomplete, irrelevant details, they may use that time to make relevant amendments to the registers themselves, because we have 1 year to implement the provisions of the law that obliges us to transfer all that data automatically to the forms. So if there is a set of incomplete details in the register, they will be transferred to the form with the errors. This is why we have 1 year for cooperation to work jointly on technical implementation of this project, and the applicants, they have 1 year to make sure that their details on the register is the most correct possible. We have more questions about public legal entities. We are asked whether those officials are supposed to submit the declarations within the years 21 and 22, which officials, according to the current legislation, are not publicly exposed persons and are not supposed to be applicants. Well, we have such cases when people did not change their positions, but they were their obligation to submit declarations was taken away, so they just lose that status, and in that case they are not supposed to submit declaration as soon as they retire. Also, please tell us about the special inspections of the people who start any government service within the martial law period. Well, my profile is the full inspections, so it is probably not quite something that I'm quite competent of. Well, the special inspections were already resumed in part of the judges. For example, a couple of weeks ago, we've already resumed this part of our work. Many people were appointed to the positions upon the conditions of the martial law without special inspections, and the agency got an obligation to inspect all those people who were assigned to the positions without special inspections. This is why those special features that are present in the declarations, they are not present here, so all the declarations are resumed, and by the December 24, we're supposed to inspect everybody who were appointed to their positions without special inspections. Well, we're seeing here's a lot of questions, so let us provide an advice to our applicants whom they should, whom they should refer to in case they have any questions. Well, we know that there will be a lot of questions. We have a call center, we have consultancy, and I hope shortly we will overcome all those obstacles. Everything will be brought back to normal conditions. Well, do you have a guide available with some frequently asked questions where you can find the answers to those typical questions? Well, the information that we were trying to communicate is the information that is made up of the questions that were already asked from the agency. We already made a number of explanations, and this challenge that you're talking about is something that a special department works on. We work on taking into account all those questions, removing them to make sure that the least people possible apply to the agency with their specific individual situations. Thank you very much for this conversation. I hope this process will be the maximum comfortable possible for those who are supposed to submit the declarations, and it will be of the benefit to our society. Thank you. I want to thank our spectators and obviously our security and defense forces, and we continue working together for our victory. Glory to Ukraine.